and gentlemen, Zach Stafford! Welcome to Bangalore. Here you go, have a seat. Hello.
Okay, wonderful, Zach. So I'm super excited. I had a little bit of a side chat with Zach before, and I've taken the liberty of asking him if I could have a little fun with him. So my first question, Zach, is actually around the name Extra Fabulous Comics.
Yeah.
You know, when I was in school and internet really sort of came up, the first email ID I created was Great Cool Shubham.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I'm cool, so I need to tell by my email ID it's Cool Shubham, but maybe that's not enough, so I'll add a great, prefix. So Great Cool Shubham.
Yeah.
Extra Fabulous Comics somewhat reminds me of that. You're saying your comics are not just fabulous, they're extra fabulous.
Oh, yeah.
So where does the name come from?
Yeah, so when I first started, the comics were so bad that I wanted to trick people into looking at them. So I lied and said they were extra fabulous. And then they were disappointed, but they thought it was funny because I lied to them. And they kept coming back, so it kind of worked.
Wonderful. So it became a self-fulfilling prophecy of sorts.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I said, I was going to try to grow into it, maybe the name, but it never really happened yet. So maybe eventually it'll.
Wonderful. You know, what I'm very excited to hear about, Zach, is I was reading in one of your interviews that you started comics when you were down and out, right? I would love to know where this started and, how this possibly changed your life.
Yeah, so I grew up, just like a lot of people, drawing so much as a kid and drawing funny things for my friends. And that was like all I did in school. I was a terrible student. I got D's and F's and almost failed out, but I made it by the skin of my teeth somehow. And of course, all my teachers said, there's no way you'll ever survive making stupid drawings like this, so stop, basically. So I kind of was like, okay. So I tried to join the military, and the military didn't want me because I'm allergic to fire ants. And then I tried to go to school for music, and I did, and then I learned, I'm not good at music, so I failed at that. And then I got married, and then I failed at that, and we had a terrible divorce. And so I was like at the bottom. And I was living in an attic at one point in a place called North Dakota, where it gets very cold, right? It gets so cold that you can die. And my little heater broke in the middle of the night, right? And my ex-wife calls to tell me that my dog had pooped in my bathtub at way home in Florida. And I thought it was funny. I was like, oh, that's funny. Thanks for calling me. And I realized then that I was so cold. I was like, oh my God, it's so cold. It was -5 and dropping in my bedroom, and I was about to die in my sleep of cold. And my dog pooped in the bathtub and saved my life that night. And I crawled downstairs to the heater and realized I can't be living like this. I gotta do something. I gotta do something good with my life. If I died tonight, it would have been just like, no one would have cared. No one would have known. That would have been it. I want to do something. So I was like, the last time I was really happy was when I was drawing stupid things for my friends in school. And I started doing it again and putting them online, and everyone hated them. And then I was making them extra fabulous comics, and somehow it worked. I don't know why, but that's my life.
Wow, that's really inspiring, by the way. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. I'm also curious to know that, you started long ago, right? So there's always that tipping point, especially with virtual comics or web comics, right? So what was that tipping point for Extra Fabulous Comics which sort of just, helped you shoot up?
So actually, the tipping point really for me was whenever I started really listening to the criticism I was getting. Because for a while I had this image in my head of what I wanted my comics to be, right? I had this really strong idea, like, this is what I want. I want them to look like this. I want them to sound and feel like this. Everybody hated them, right? And everyone was always being so mean to me in the comments. And at some point, I was just like, you know what? Maybe I need to listen to these people. Maybe they're telling me what they want to see, right? And maybe that's what'll be good for me if I, do that. So I started adapting, their criticism, into my work. And lo and behold, people started liking it. And it didn't feel like I was betraying myself because even though I was taking their changes, I was still making them my own. And it still felt like my own work, but it was becoming better because people were helping me online. And then this was really mostly on Reddit. I don't know if many of you know about Reddit, but it's a great resource. You go and people are willing to help you out and give you criticism and stuff. But that's when I started making the front page of Reddit. It really started blowing up my numbers on social media, and that's pretty much it.
And the rest is history.
Yeah.
The rest is 650K followers on Instagram.
Yeah.
Wow,
Absolutely.
that's a punch.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Okay, so another thing which I get asked a lot is how do you build a style? Okay, now I for the longest time did not even think I had a style till people started asking me
Right.
that. But when I see your work, I see a very distinct style, a certain imagery, a certain way of using colors.
Yeah.
So very curious to know, one, how do you build a style? And if you could talk a little about your style and what prompted you to do comics the way you do.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think that it's important to have an idea, like I said, to have an idea of what you want, right, to begin with, so you have something to start with. And a lot of times, that's what you want is probably going to resemble something that you enjoy, so some other person's work. But eventually, you need to develop your own, right? So that comes through, what I think, that comes through just doing, drawing so much. And for me, in order to make a good comic, I need to draw at least 20 terrible comics. Every single comic I have has dozens of comics that no one should ever read, that should be burned, and that are awful behind it, And through all that work, through all that drawing, you will invariably develop your own style, just without even trying. I swear to God, it just happens.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
amazing. And but I'm also very curious about what you just mentioned, which is 20 terrible comics and then one good comic, right? So how do you decide those 20 are terrible? Because social media, I'm sure there's a tribe or a following for those 20 as well.
So it's really good to have a small community of people that that like you, right? So for me, I'm lucky to have a Patreon, which is a pretty small number of people who just like my comics enough to support them. So I heap really terrible comics onto them, and they weed out the good ones for me, and then I post those to social media and stuff. But you could do that with your friends, drop a crap load of really awful dump comics on them and let them just tell you what's good, what's not, and just really listen and take their word for it, because a lot of times that's what yeah.
Wow, that's a very smart strategy though, because for those of you who do not know Patreon is where people pay to follow you, right? So I love that you're actually dumping the ones you don't like on the people who are paying,
Yep.
while keeping the best for the ones who are not.
Yes.
Which is absolutely the opposite of what a lot of people do, but I'm going to take a note of that.
Yeah.
Another thing which I'm also very curious to know is Instagram, which is where I see a lot of your comics, as a platform is evolving. I see an advent of Reels. Yesterday in a panel we were discussing how a lot of us are struggling to keep up with animated content because a lot of us are static creators, right? That's a new skill. What works on Reels may not work on, let's say, your comics. So how are you keeping up? How are you still able to maintain the same following, engagement, all of that?
Yeah. You mean through animated content?
Through animated content,
Yeah.
through videos.
Yeah. I need to do more, because every time I make an animation, I get a job offer that is just life-changing. I mean, for some reason, animated content is just the thing that the world wants so much of, and it makes you just that much more valuable, I guess, to be able to just draw squiggly lines for some reason, you know. And for me, it's been a really great thing to like learn a new program, like to learn how to record audio, to do all that stuff. But my heart is with comics, and I don't like that Instagram is forcing us to make video content, and that TikTok, you know, is doing the same thing, and that's where we're all trending towards. So I'm like kind of fighting against it, but then again, I got to do it, and it's just, you know, I'm all mixed up with it.
No, I'm gonna take that because I think a lot of us are in the same school, which is fighting against it, but have to do it.
Right.
Yeah. So guys, fighting against it, but have to do it.
Yeah.
I'm also very keen to know, because your comics are about a lot of things, right? So where do those ideas come from, and how do you convert those ideas to visuals? Because you always have like a very interesting take on the same relatable things. So how do you do that?
So, like I said earlier, like, I don't wait for inspiration to strike anymore. I did at the beginning, and it was like, I would tell myself, if inspiration just hits me once a week, I'll be happy, you know? And you can't depend upon that, you know, because that's like just, you never know what your mental state is. You can't, if your caffeine intake is right to receive those. But in order to really be productive, I have found the only way is through improv, basically. Like you sit and you draw a panel that has no joke in it, and then you make a joke out of that. And it can be the worst and just the worst thing you've ever seen in your life, but you made a comic. It's terrible, but do it again, and do it again, and do it again, and do it until some magic happens, and it will happen. I swear to you, you just keep at it. And you can adapt that to anything, to writing, to drawing comics. I mean, that's like all it, you know, I mean, I swear. It's the best strategy there is. It's the only one I know of. And I mean, whenever you're working with that magic, the magic of improv, you never know what might happen. You might make something that's just like beyond your normal abilities to make. I don't know how it happens. It's just, you know, that's how I do it.
Wow, I love that. You know, another thing which I loved about what you just said is a lot of people think that, you know, artists are just creative geniuses who just sit one day, scribble something, and, you know, put it out there, and that's just creative madness. But with you, I hear a lot of perseverance, where you put one and you know, keep at it. I love that.
Yeah, I mean, it's been really good for me because I've always had like an ego struggle, right? I want to have a successful comic, and I want to be this, I want to be big. But when you fail so much through that process of drawing terrible things, it helps strip away that ego, because you know that you're not making gold every time. You know, you have to weed through it. You gotta, and it's just persevering, like you said.
Awesome. And I would also love to hear about your book.
Oh, yeah.
I see that you've got a collection of some of your best works in this, so if you could talk a little about that.
So I got to do a Kickstarter with Skybound Publishing, the people who make, Invincible and The Walking Dead and stuff. They actually were the only publishing company who would work with me because my comics are so bad that everyone else said no. So I'm very thankful to them, and they were so kind and like sweet, and they treated me so nice. But anyway, the Kickstarter was in the top 5 comic Kickstarters of all time, and the book is pretty bad, but you could get it right now at a booth over there somewhere. There's a book booth that has them, and I didn't even know that today.
You know, I love the number of times you've said your comics are so bad. I think they're so bad that they're so good. So,
oh yeah,
I mean,
they're extra fabulous.
They're extra fabulous. Yeah, let's use that. I would also love to take, you know, if we have time, a question or two from the audience.
Yeah.
So if there's any question you guys want to ask Zach about his process, about his comics, about Instagram, Yeah, we have a question there. How do we take a question there? Can we send a mic? Or if you could come in the front? There in the end.
There we go.
Hi. Okay. Well, throughout this sort of interview, you said that your comic books are bad. That's
Yeah.
why they're so good. So would you say that that sort of become your patent style? Because if you look, like Archie's has a common patent style that everybody likes. Marvel has its patent style. DC has its patent style. But for Extra Fabulous Comics, you say that it's so bad that they're good at the same time. So
Yeah.
do you think that's become your patent,
Yeah.
style, and you don't want to change it?
I think so because it's like it immediately sets your expectations to zero for my comics. And if I can somehow exceed zero, then I win,
Okay.
And that's where I want to be. I don't want you to think anything else, please,
So you can say that your comics are also a form of comedy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for the question.
I love this under-promise and over-deliver strategy.
Yeah,
Most
yeah.
marketers do the opposite. Doesn't
Right.
work for them. This one totally does. I'm
Yeah.
going to take that.
Because every now and then, I might do something that they actually like, and then they're like, "Whoa, that's amazing!" Whereas normally it would be like, "Oh, okay, yeah." But
Awesome.
it's the way to do it.
Awesome. Sweet one. We can take one more question. Yeah. Actually, we have two, so we'll maybe just take those two.
My question is that how do you work with your schedule?
With my schedule,
Yeah.
so
Also between, lifting weights, which we can clearly see on you.
While I'm lifting weights, I'm also drawing comics. No, I'm just kidding. I have a very brief window in the day because I'm a middle-aged man now, where I have the creative energy to sit down and actually draw as much as I need to in order to make a good comic. And if I'm not sitting down and forcing myself to do it at that time, because I want to do everything else with that creative energy. You want to do anything but sit and draw. Then it's terrible and it's a bad time. So I forced myself to sit down either in a coffee shop or somewhere without a screen, and it's usually at about 2:15 p.m. Eastern time that I need to do it. And I need to have a cup of coffee in me. I need to have pooped. I need, all these things to have happened in order for that perfect energy to happen. And that's pretty much my schedule. The rest of the time of the day is spent working out and eating healthy food and being very handsome. I'm just kidding. I don't know.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I love that as well because a lot of people think of, again, creatives as absolutely undisciplined. I love that you have a 2:15 EST where you're going to go sit, draw your comic, right? The power of discipline in art, very, very understated. So
Yeah.
thanks for sharing that.
And it took me years to even realize that that's what my body needed, So I mean, you just got to find that window in the day where you're right in your mental stuff is going good, and yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
We had one last question. Somebody there raised his hand as well. Yeah, we'll take that.
Hello. Yeah.
Hello.
My question to you was that even I'm starting a comic, so how do you get the inspiration? Like, do you go to a park, work out? Like, when do you get the inspiration?
Well, so most of the time I try not to rely on inspiration. You know what I mean? There's this is gonna be weird because I draw such I have butts and stuff in my comics, but there's this amazing monk named Jean Quan who said there is infinite creativity all around you, and that is absolutely true. Every single singular joke can be reinterpreted and reproduced a billion trillion different ways. So there's always inspiration everywhere. And to me, that's like a very heartening thing, because I've always put myself in this box where I'm like, oh, maybe I've made all of the comics there are to make, you know, or maybe I've made every joke I will ever make in my life. I'm done. There is an infinite amount, always. So wherever you go, at whatever time, you know, just take whatever you're looking at, whatever situation someone's talking about near you, put that in your first panel. You know, it doesn't have to be a joke. It doesn't have to even ring like in your mind like it's going to be a joke. But then do like I said and just turn it into something. It can be something really terrible, and you just made a joke. You did it. You made a comic. Do it again, you know? That's all it takes, I'm telling you. You'll make gold. You'll be a millionaire. You'll do it. You'll do great. Sorry.
Wonderful. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you so much, Zach. I'm going to take that as sort of the headline of this, which is this infinite creativity out there.
Yes.
Yeah. And on that note, I'm going to say thank you to you for a wonderful chat. I had a lot of fun. Guys, if you had fun during the chat, give Zach a huge round of applause.
Thank you so much.